Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Kathleen Long is the Chief Revenue Officer at RepairPal. RepairPal is a great friend of the Fixed Ops community, making incredible strides with the dealer community. And Kathleen, it is a great honor and privilege to welcome you back to the conference.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Hey, and thank you so much for your support of Dare to Dream and LLS. I love the mask. I love the video that you did on social media. So thank you so much. And, it means a whole lot, especially, this time of year. So.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the mask is for unmasking childhood cancer, which is important. And I really appreciate that you guys are supporting such a great cause, Ted. I think most families can say that they have been touched by cancer in some way or another. We all know somebody or have been affected by it personally. So I think it's an amazing cause, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, Kathleen, RepairPal obviously has been a big part of the Fixed Ops Roundtable for some time. We've talked about a lot of things, and RepairPal knows all about the consumer because you're frequently quoted now throughout the event and throughout the media, the consumer and their needs.
Absolutely.
But Kathleen, I got to ask you today, how big of a role does attracting and retaining employees at the dealer level play in increasing those dealer profits?
I think it's crucial, Ted. So, everywhere you turn, you're hearing about the technician crisis, the service staff crisis. And look, it doesn't just affect automotive. There are a lot of industries that have been pretty hard hit, especially post-pandemic, in terms of thinking about how they want to attract and retain the best folks. And so, great dealers spend a ton of time thinking about customer experience, as they should, because we also have a retention problem on the customer side, that RepairPal obviously is trying to help dealers solve. But I think they're two different sides of the same coin. So when we solve our employee retention problem, guess what? We're going to start to solve our customer retention problem. And, we've got technicians and service drive employees leaving the profession, many of them who, we work so hard to get them interested at the high school and college level. And half of them leave the industry in the first 2 years. That means we're not doing a great job of getting these young folks into dealerships, into service drives, and making them feel like this is a great career that's going to take them through their lives. And then there's a turnover of roughly 30% across the entire service staff every year. So look, a lot of room for improvement, Ted.
And what it shows me, Kathleen, is that RepairPal is genuinely interested in the success of the dealer, because that leads to a lot of things along the way. And, that's very refreshing to hear, Kathleen.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, me personally, in terms of my career and the way that I think about what my impact can be as a leader, is I want to make great workplaces for people. And if I can do that at RepairPal, certainly that's a goal. And that's something that I work very hard to do. But if I can also impact, the dealerships that we serve, the independent shops that we serve, the partners that I work with on a day-to-day basis that also, bring customers into our dealers and shops. If I can have any impact whatsoever on helping them attract and retain the best employees and create a great workspace, then now I'm having the sort of impact in the world that I always wanted to have when I was a little kid. And I thought, I'm going to change the world. This is my way to do it. We spend a ton of time at work, Ted. Everybody does. And so it has to be something you love, or you're wasting your time.
There's a lot of refreshing ideas, new ideas also circulating in the dealer community, a lot of best practices, dealers who are not afraid to try things to improve the culture. I've seen things lately that we had on the roundtable, Kathleen, like going to a 4-day store-wide work week. And, that brings me to your company, RepairPal. You were voted one of Inc. magazine's best workplaces. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What do you attribute that to, and what can dealerships do to help improve their workplace now that this is really on the radar?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, there's some good news here and some bad news. Good news is that we didn't do anything wild, right? So we don't have this employee benefits program or something like that that's going to be very hard to execute on. You hear about some of these technology companies offering, really wild and extravagant packages and things like that to their employees to try to retain them. Instead, what RepairPal did is something that actually sounds simple, but can be difficult in the execution, which is we focused on values. So, and it starts with why. I shared with you, in my last answer, a little bit about my why, making a difference for people, creating workplaces where, people are able to do their best work. That's a big part of my why. And so I encourage, service directors, GMs to think about, why are you in this business? And it can't be just about making money, because look, we could make money in any business that we do, right? We're smart people. We could figure it out. We're in this business for a reason. There's something that we love. There's something that we want to create, and we want to connect to that. And once we connect to the why, then it's a matter of working with our staff to come up with a shared set of values that then drive culture. So RepairPal is a mission-driven company. We're here to serve consumers and to make sure they know where the best auto repair facilities are, that they know that they're not going to be overcharged by the dealers that are on our platform. And as part of that, how we anchor ourselves in our work is with our values. So, for example, RepairPal is a force for good. So we encourage both inside and outside of work people to contribute to their communities and to the auto industry as a whole. We're collaborative, we're driven. We are sometimes disruptive. We've created a technology that's doing new things and that's thinking about and reimagining service in a different way. And that's creating price transparency in the service drive. So that's something that's very important as well. So, when you think about creating that list of values, I suggest, collaborating with your staff to figure out what that list of values is, and then translating that into a culture that makes sense. You mentioned the 4-day work week. If that's what the big concern is for your staff, then that makes a ton of sense, right? And the only way you're going to get to know that is really by, sitting down and participating with your staff members and talking to them and figuring out, hey, what's meaningful to these people? What is something that they could get behind? And then how do we take our values and translate those into our everyday behaviors, actions, the way that we treat each other, the way that we're, integrating ourselves into our community.
These values that you mentioned, I think you mentioned force for good and being authentic and a few others. The fact that you're actually taking the time to write that down and do that internally at RepairPal. And I know that you and your team are out and about. You're on the road. I've seen you, Art, Ryan, and your team, which is growing, interacting at dealerships. And the fact that you've got this internally in place, I think that speaks volumes, the fact that you have these values.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I'm a long-term employee at RepairPal. I will tell you, I've never spent 8 years at any company ever until now. And I've been there a little over 8 years. And what keeps me is that we are anchored in our mission and in our values, and we do live those. And we've tried to make them very meaningful in terms of making sure that performance reviews include a section on, how well everyone is living these values in the community, and that we hold each other accountable to it. We have productive discourse around, hey, does this exemplify this value? Authentic, you mentioned. Personally, to me, that's a value that means a lot. I spend virtually zero time worrying about being someone else at work at RepairPal. I just show up how I am, right? And with all of these costumes in my closet, and my larger than life personality, and I use that for the good of the RepairPal community and hopefully the automotive industry as a whole. And when everybody gets to do that and to be their full self at work, and communicate about what their needs are and things like that, I think it creates a really beautiful space where now you've got a different kind of workplace that people actually want to be a part of. And it goes beyond just collecting the paycheck on Friday afternoon, right? It's a place that you want to participate in, that you're proud to work, and that you're able to contribute to.
The conversation that you and I are having right now, I've had that with a number of dealers on the roundtable, both in person and here virtually online. I don't ever recall this type of conversation, Kathleen Long, with a company that's not a dealership, but works with dealers. And again, that too is extremely refreshing and eye-opening.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, when you've got a mission at your center, then the values come naturally from that. And, what happens is, I kind of left profit in the dust a little while ago. We're talking about mission, values, all of that. But what actually happens is when you live these values, you create a success that then, I'm chief revenue officer. I have to worry about the money at the end of the day. That's my job. But what I find is when you do the right things and you work with other people who are doing the right things, the money comes. So the profit sort of takes care of itself when you've got this committed group of employees that are doing amazing things. And look, the dealers that we're working with, many of them have figured this out, Ted. So, and as part of figuring this out, then they've started to figure out the customer side too, because now they've got these employees that are wildly engaged, that are excited to serve the customer, that want to, make sure the customer does everything they need to on the vehicle. And, RepairPal is there with tools that help the employees to have those conversations, to stay engaged, to increase, in-lane sales, to increase ELR and all of that. And basically, at the end of the day, that also increases employee satisfaction, because part of it is not just saying you have these values, but really helping your employees to live those when they're working with customers, when they're working with each other. So,
everyone, we're talking today to Kathleen Long. She is the Chief Revenue Officer at RepairPal. Kathleen, I've got to ask you, we've talked about what dealers can do inside their workplace, but let's talk a little bit about what dealers can do to participate in their communities. I've seen, and I won't mention any names, but there's a lot of folks we've had on this roundtable who are in their communities doing things. This event has a charitable nature to it as well, but they are involved with their communities, probably as dealers need to be and should be. Why is that an important part of attracting and retaining and keeping their employees?
It's critical. So a dealership is a hyper-local business. It is physical in nature. It exists inside of a community structure. And the more you participate in your local community, the better you understand your customer. The better you understand your customer, the more you understand your employee, because your employee is a member of this community, right? So it's this beautiful circle. But participating in the community is absolutely essential. And like you said, there's so many dealers out there that are doing great and amazing things, and that are figuring out, hey, what is it that my community needs? What is my community concerned about? What are the causes that matter? What are people talking about? What does my community look like in terms of diversity and representation? How does my service staff then reflect, not just my community values, but what my community looks like and the people that are in my community? We did a panel on women together, Ted, right? For example. So most communities have a significant number of women in them. So do we have women in the service drive or in the bays working on cars, right? So really thinking about that, and the more you participate in that way, the more attractive you become, both as an employer and as a place where customers want to come and bring their cars for service or buy their next car.
This conversation about, things such as dealership culture, I don't even remember these conversations 5-10 years ago, yet, it's such an important part. It's the foundational to being the dealer. So Kathleen, a dealer has a great set of values that their employees, their management lives by, and they participate in the community, and we can give countless examples. How can partnering with RepairPal help them create happier employees?
Partnering with RepairPal helps you to demonstrate what a great dealership you already are. So if you're doing the right things, then as a third-party validation service, basically we're saying, hey, we've reviewed this dealership. We know that they're charging fair prices. We know that they're being transparent. We know they're offering great customer service. Many of their previous customers have said so. And we're giving it that additional sort of seal of approval, if you will. And then we have a tool with our fair price estimator that allows for the conversations that employees are having with customers in the moment to kind of say, and, look, you don't have to take my word for it. Here's a fair price. It just makes that conversation go so much more smoothly. Part of really making sure that your employees are equipped to live your values is making sure they have the tools that backstop them so that those conversations are easy instead of hard. I mean, it's difficult to just say to someone you just met, hey, trust me, right? Okay, sure. Right. But when you have something that allows you to prove it, where you don't have to, just rely on saying, hey, just do it. And you can say, look, I can prove it. I've got this third party tool. That's very, very helpful. And what we found with some of the dealerships that, we're currently working with is that it actually does increase employee satisfaction. And depending on what metrics actually result in employee getting a larger paycheck, sometimes it hits home in a different way as well for those employees, bringing it back to the revenue side. The dealership's making more money. Often the employees are making more money as well. And you've got that better customer retention. You've got more customers coming into the service drive. You've got them getting more recommendations fixed at the time that they're in the service drive because they understand that they're being charged fairly. And they don't have to go home with that kind of uneasy feeling like, I don't know if that was the right thing. Because you were able to solve that concern right in the service drive. And we know that concern exists. We have 4 million customers on our site every month. So we know these consumers are looking at prices. And many of them are looking at prices during or after the repair transaction. They just really want to be sure that the price that they got was fair. So addressing that up front and knowing that might be a concern in the customer's mind, even if they don't express it, is super important. And look, employees want to produce satisfied customers. It's what makes them happy. And we, like you said, we weren't hearing about this years ago. It's probably because the expectations for customer service have risen over the last 10 years. So I've been, in some form of customer service job for probably the last 25 years. I'm dating myself a little bit here. And what I've seen is that the customer expectations just continue to rise. When they do, the expectations of us as employers continue to rise as well, because we've got to equip our service staff to meet that increased need from the customer.
Expectations continue to rise. And I think there is, I'll call it an ROI, return on investment, when we have happier employees. What do you think?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, there is. And look, connecting back to your own personal why, I would much rather work around, people that are contributing, happy, excited to be at work, that are going to work with me, help me to find solutions for problems that we might encounter in the day-to-day workplace versus, people who are just punching a clock or collecting a paycheck. So ultimately, it affects quality of life for the GM and the service director as well.
So RepairPal, you're very proactive. You give the tools to dealers and their employees to help. And I've heard, these are not my words, these are people who've been on the roundtable, dealers saying that you help give their employees confidence, provide transparency for not just for the consumer, but for the employee as well, and help them create consistency as well. And I'm noticing, Kathleen, I think it's some of the best and better dealers who are already on the RepairPal platform. Is it difficult to get on started with the RepairPal? How does that work?
I don't think it's difficult. There is a bit of a process. We are a certified network. So in order to have integrity around what we're doing, we do take dealers through a process. We try to make that as simple as we possibly can. We are collecting their customer experience scores. We are taking them through our estimator and methodology and making sure they understand what prices are going to be shown on our website so that they're comfortable with those and that they align with the pricing model that the dealer has. We're talking to the dealer about, dealers generally have good ongoing training programs for their employees. Of course, they're using high quality OEM parts, and they're doing a great job on the car and from a technical perspective. So we really are focused on that pricing and customer service component when it comes to how we're evaluating these dealers. But most dealers are pretty organized. So we find that once we start this conversation where this is resonating, it's a dealer that's got the Dare to Compare board. They want to prove to their community that they're fair priced. They're already participating in that community. They want to do more to demonstrate that to them. It goes very, very quickly in terms of collecting the information we need and moving that through the process. And then we're there every step of the way to help train the service employees so that they've got the script that they can use. They understand how to integrate the tool into their day-to-day work. We'll do the heavy lifting there, Ted.
Kathleen, I love it. I see, as I mentioned earlier, RepairPal everywhere. Everyone, if you're not yet certified with RepairPal, please consider it. It is, I think, a big part of what's coming in fixed operations. You want to have that extra transparency. And as you've mentioned before, Kathleen, there's a lot of places where people can validate things, but those are not all created equal, and some are far better than others.
Yes, that's right. And so we've had integrity around this process for many years now. So we've been certifying locations for over 10 years. And we've built up credibility in this space. We started obviously with independent repair shops, but for dealers to demonstrate that they are equally committed to fair price and transparency and be listed in, the same way is important. And obviously, we also have built experiences on our site that are only appropriate for dealer, such as recalls and factory warranty and so forth. And so we really want to make sure that the consumer gets to the right repair facility for their specific needs. And we want to overcome that trust hurdle. Recalls is a great example of where the consumer trust hurdle exists. It's free. So why doesn't everybody who has a recall just take their car in and get it fixed? It doesn't cost them anything. So that's even where price isn't a concern. But there's still this trust factor of like, well, maybe they're going to find something else wrong with my car and I'm going to end up with a big bill anyway or whatever. And so, really, really helping consumers to overcome that. And importantly, and on the topic here, the service lane employee to overcome that so they can be successful in their day-to-day job is what we're focused on.
Kathleen Long, Chief Revenue Officer at RepairPal, thank you for helping create this fixed ops revolution. And I think great things ahead for us this year and into 23. So on behalf of the fixed ops community and Roundtable, Kathleen, thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
Kathleen Long from RepairPal here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. And happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too, Ted. Thank you so much. My favorite holiday.